You're welcome to the second session on clear communication course. Before you could go through this, you must have finished the polished speaking drills. If you know that you haven't gone through that, or the last video that was sent to you, then go through it. Clear communication course through word stress. You would agree with me that clear communication is an important aspect of communication. And this is the area we want to emphasize. We want to see how we can achieve clear communication by looking at syllables, 8 word stress rules, and then some couple of reading drills. And this is the whole essence of this course, to master the reading of communication. Now, the objective of this course is to develop clear communication styles, develop the right English accent, reading, and beat. Reduce your natural accent in order not to cause confusion whenever you speak. Every language has its own unique reading. Hence, if you study a second language like English, you would naturally, yes, naturally apply a sound and reading of your first language to that second language until you are taught. And so the whole essence of learning here is for you to be able to improve your accent and reading whenever you're communicating. Now, the first lesson is on syllables. You need to know how to part words in order to put in the stress where they need be. A syllable is a unit of pronunciation that has one vowel sound or that has one vowel sound, and this part may be divided into 1, 2, 3, or 4. First syllable word, or we'll call it monosyllable, are fast, yes, no, jump, by. These examples are already showing you that the word has one vowel sound. Example of 2 vowel sounds include answer, culture, respond, teacher, basket, lover, market, bouncer, cupboard, because, again. Example of 3-syllable word: consistent, discussion, computer, syllable, microphone, astronaut, vegetable, and so on. We have 4-syllable words: competition, information, education, and more. Now, let's go to the word proper. Why word stress matters. Anytime you're being asked to speak, you need to stress certain part of your sentences to make it come alive and colorful, and most importantly, become clear to the people who hear you. Now, I want to give you a scenario. In her head, she felt like Saskia understands what she had said. Desert is my favorite thing. This is what she said. Now, desert could be one S or double S, but in this case, this desert is my favorite thing. This was what she wrote. Now, when a native speaker heard her, she felt that this is confusing. That how can a place that does not have life, that's not beautiful, is your favorite thing? And then it then occurred to the speaker that stressing or what stress is the issue. And that's why it's very important as a public speaker that you stress the right words in every sentence that you give. Now, this is where it starts and begins. What is word stress? Stress is about pronouncing a syllable louder, longer, and higher in pitch. Now, learning word stress is a crucial part of becoming an advanced communicator. This is very important. Although there are exceptions to the rules when it comes to word stress, but the 8 rules are very important. They help you take care of a lot of things in your communication. But first, before we move into those 8, what are the features of a stressed syllable? We emphasize a particular vowel in a specific syllable of a word. So when a native speaker stresses a syllable in a word, this is what they're trying to do. 1, produce longer vowel. Secondly, raise the pitch of the syllable to a higher level. Thirdly, say the syllable louder. And fourth, pronounce it with clarity. And the last one, create a more distinctive facial movement. Take this into consideration before moving. So let us go into the 8 rules of word stress. The first one is nouns and adjective. Nouns and adjective with 2-syllable words often have their first syllable stressed. Let's see examples. Table is a noun. Scissors is a noun and a 2-syllable word. Pretty is an adjective. Clever is an adjective. All of these words are stressed on their first syllable. Table, scissors, pretty, clever. Rule number 2. Let's move on to verbs and preposition with 2-syllable words. These words are often stressed on their second syllable. Now there is a flip. The verb and the adjective with 2-syllable words have their stress on the first syllable, while the verb and preposition with 2-syllable words have their stress on the second syllable. Let's take a look at some example. Present. Present is a 2-syllable word and the stress is on the second. So it's a verb and the stress is on the second syllable. Export is a verb and the stress is on the second syllable. The second syllable. Aside is preposition, sorry. Between is preposition, so it's stressed on the second syllable. Now, rule number 3, words that have both noun and a verb. We all see in English how certain words, if stressed in a different way, will produce the noun, and if stressed in a different way also will produce a verb. Let's take a look at some of these examples. The noun has its stress on the first syllable, which corresponds to the first rule, and why the verb is stressed on the second syllable. So it corresponds to the first and the second rule. For instance, the word present can be present or present. Is a word that is both a noun and a verb. Present, present. Export, export. Suspect, suspect. So these words are both noun and verb. That's why the rule applies to them differently. Rule number 4, words that are both a noun and a verb. For example, 3-syllable words ending in ER and LY often have their stress on the first syllable. Let's take a look at some example. Orderly. Or. The stress is on or. Orderly. Quietly. Quietly. The stress is on quiet. Manager. The stress is on ma. Brother. The stress is on bro. Father. The stress is on father. Fa. Do you see? These are nouns and the stress is on the first syllable because they're ending with ER or LY. Let's take a look at some more examples. Let's take a rule number 5. Words ending in IC, SION, and TION. The rule says when a word ends in IC, SION, or TION, the stress is usually on the second to last syllable. You count syllables backwards and put a stress on the second one from the end. For instance, This rule says stress the second to last syllable. Creation has 3 syllables. So creation. So you stress the second to the last. A, creation is three syllable word. Commission, you stress the second to the last. Mission, commission. Photographic, the stress is on gra because it's the second syllable to the last. Television, the stress is on V because it's the second syllable from the last. Let's take a look at words ending with CY, TY, PHY, GY, and AL. The rule says when a word ends in CY, TY, PHY, GY, or AL, the stress is often on the third to the last syllable. Similarly, count syllables backwards and put a stress on the third from the end. For instance, democracy. Democracy is a 4-syllable word. And so when you count from the end, it rests on more. So you have democracy. We also have photography. When you count from the end, you get to toe. So you have photography. The same thing applies to logical. When you count from CAL, call, to the end, you have law. It falls on law. So logical. Commodity. When you count from TY, when you count from the end to the third syllable, you have more, commodity. And the next is psychology. The rule applies to it. Now let's go to rule number 7, compound nouns. The rule. In most compound nouns, a word made up of 2 or more existing words, the word stress is on the first noun. For instance, football. You don't say football, or you don't say football. You say football with emphasis on the first noun. Keyboard, not keyboard. Keyboard, mailbox, treehouse, blackbird. These are examples of stressing the first noun. Also, when you check rule number 8, it is speaking on stressing compound adjective and verbs. We have looked at compound nouns. Let's look at compound adjectives. The rule says in most compound adjective, a single adjective made up of more than one word are often linked with a hyphen. Compound verbs, a multi-word verb that functions as a single verb. The stress is on the second word. The stress is on the second word. Remember, the rule is on compound adjective and verb. The stress is on the second word. Old-fashioned. Old-fashioned. Understand. Let's take a look at these other proper nouns. If it's 2 or 3 word name, stress is usually on the last part of the name. If it is a 2 or 3 word name, the stress is on the last part of the name. For instance, New York City, New York City, San Francisco, Mickey Mouse, University of Oregon, Mrs. Smith, Statue of Liberty, Civil War, Queen of England, Mount Everest. These are examples of stressing the last part of the name where you have 2 or 3 word name. Now it's time to stress acronyms. When you want to stress acronym, the rule says stress the last letter. Stress the last letter. For instance, in FBI, IRS, CPA, TGIF, UPS, ABC, US, PTA, SAT. So you don't say FBI or IRS. You have to stress the last letter to make it have the reading it's supposed to have. So these are all practice words. The first part of these words is a Now, we're looking at now. And the second part of these words are verbs. So when you know the rule that applies to words that are two-syllable words, you will get this perfectly. This is word stress just for you. Address, address, conflict, conflict, contest, contest, contrast, contrast, desert, desert, incline, incline, increase, increase, insult, insult, object, object, permit, permit, progress, progress. One is a noun, the other is a verb. So these are all reading practices that will improve you quickly. The professor refused to speak on the conflict in the Saudi Arabian desert and the progress the rebels were making there. It would be in violation of their contract with the university's head administrators, who did not want any more students to protest or our country's involvement in the foreign conflict, especially not on campus. Protest on campus would project an image in contrast to what the administrator and public relations department would like for the small private university. So you're going to look at how you pronounce compound word. My neighbor Tina's house is perfect. It has everything you could ever dream of. Her house has a huge living room, family room, dining room, and even a recreation room in the basement with a pool table, football, and eke ball. That is an air hockey. She also has an exercise room with great equipment, a turning board, an indoor heated swimming pool. The best part is that it's her beautiful rose garden and apple orchard. I'm really glad we are friends. Larry and Anna Proust live in New York City with their children, Jeff, Lucy, and Amon. Larry grandparents, Nina and Marcus Proust, immigrated from Europe to America after a long voyage on the Atlantic Ocean. The first Larry and Anna Proust live in New York City with their children, Jeff, Lucy, and Emma. Larry's grandparents, Nina and Marcus Proust, immigrated from Europe to America after a long voyage on the Atlantic Ocean. Their first sight of America was a Statue of Liberty. After landing at Alice Island, they settled in New York City. To this day, the Proust family continues to live in New York City, also known as the Big Apple. Thank you for being a part of this course. If you want to learn more, keep going to other sessions. See you at the next session.